Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. In this video, we are to look at the period in trigonometric function, and we are referring to the period, you are referring to the inside multiplier, the number that is directly attached to the input x. We are to refer to this normal sine graph here, where x is being restricted in between 0 to 2 pi radian, or in other words, x is in between 0 degrees to 360 degrees. You may ask the reason, why would we restrict in between 0 to 2 pi radian? It's because the function keeps repeating itself. If you never restrict the domain, you will get a sine graph that keeps repeating. And remember that the length of one full cycle before this trigonometric function repeats is called the period. In this case, we have 2 pi as the period, or 360 degrees, the one that is in yellow. And after each 360 degrees, or 2 pi radian, the trigonometric function will keep repeats and move on forever in both the left and the right direction. We are now to look at this normal sine graph in which y is equal to sine x. If you are to look at the uppercase B, the multiplier inside the function, and is assumed as 1, and we all know that this normal sine graph has the period equal to 360 degrees. We are to look at two other scenarios. Let's first look at that has the uppercase B that is greater than 1. Then we have sine 2x, and we are to determine the period. Let me give you the period formula for sine and cosine graph. You have the period 360 degrees divided by the absolute value of the uppercase B. Or if you are to measure in terms of radian, you have 2 pi radian over the absolute value of B. Let's look at this orange graph, and we are to use degrees just for simplicity, and divided by 2, the inside multiplier that tells you that your period in this orange graph is 180 degrees. So we are to mark the 180 degrees here, and that tells us that from 0 degrees to 180 degrees, that will be one cycle. And after that, the graph will keep repeat itself. Therefore, you should have a sine graph like this. And the second cycle starts from 180 degrees to 360 degrees. You are to repeat the cycle. And this is how the sine graph should look like with the period as 180 degrees. Let's look at the last scenario in which your y is equal to sine half x. And let's determine the period of this function. So 360 degrees divided by half, I believe that should give you 720 degrees. So you should know that from 0 degrees to 720 degrees, that the sine graph will complete one cycle. But in this case, we are restricting the domain in between 0 degrees to 360 degrees. That tells you from 0 to 360 degrees, this green graph will only complete half a cycle. You are to start from 0 and complete half the cycle to 360 degrees. And you should have the graph like this. Now we are to use table of values and perform the same thing. If you are to look at this inside multiplier, that is 2. Therefore, we are to determine the period for this function. So we are to measure in degrees divided by the absolute value of 2. And I believe the cycle should be 180 degrees. And then we are to take the x from 0 to 180 degrees. The reason is from 180 to 360 degrees, if we just keep repeating. And we are to take the 3 points that cuts evenly from 0 degrees to 180 degrees. That tells you you are to use 180 degrees and divide it by 4. So you should have 45 degrees interval. And we are to use the calculator and find the y values of the corresponding x values. Let me do the first 3 for you. So you have the function y is equal to cos 2x, and first domain is 0. So y is equal to cos, put a parenthesis, 2 times 0. And I believe 2 times 0 degrees will get you 0 degrees. So cos 0 degrees will get you 1. In a similar way, let's do 45 degrees. So cos 2 times 45 degrees inside a parenthesis, that gives you cos 90 degrees and should be 0. And the third degree is 90. So cos 2 times 90, they will give you cos 180 degrees, and that is minus 1. In a similar way, you should get 0 and 1 correspondingly. And now let's mark the x-axis. We are just to mark from 0 degrees to 180 degrees first. And we are to draw that first and repeat the cycle. And mark the y-axis, 1 and minus 1. Then we are to plot, so 0 degrees 1, 45 degrees 0, 90 degrees minus 1, 135 degrees 0, and 181. Then we know that from 180 to 360, that should be its second cycle. And we are to use the same interval as 45 degrees. You are to get 225, 270, 315. We are to repeat the cycle. Let's mark the coordinates 0, minus 1, 0, and 1. And you should get the graph y is equal to cos 2x. Moving on, we are to look at y is equal to cos half x. Let's first determine the period. We are to use 360 degrees. Divide by the absolute value of the inside multiplier, that is half. Simply 360 divided by half. That should give you 720 degrees. But if you are to look at the question in which your x is in between 0 to 360 degrees, so we are to complete half the cycle from 0 to 360 degrees, and we are to input the x values. You can either take the intervals between 90 or 180, and that will also get you the critical points we need. So let's just take 90. And we are to use the calculator and find the y value of the corresponding x. Let's start from 0 degrees. We have the function y is equal to cos half x. In place of x, you are to put 0 degrees, and half times 0 degrees should give you 0 degrees. So cos 0 degrees should give you 1. And let's look at 90 degrees. So in place of x, you are to put 90. So half times 90 degrees should get you 45 degrees. So cos 45 degrees. And in two decimal places, that should give you 0.71. Using the same logic, let's get 180 degrees. So cos half times 180 degrees, that should give you cos 90 degrees, and that should be 0. Using the same logic, you should get the last two y values as minus 0.71 and minus 1. Let's first mark the x-axis, starting from the intersection as 0 degrees with a 90 degrees interval. And now we are to mark the y-axis 1 and minus 1 as the amplitude. But if you are to look at the question, you have the 0.71. We would also like to mark that, so let's mark it. And minus 0.71. We are to plot the coordinates on the Cartesian plane 0 degrees 1, 90 degrees 0.71, 180 degrees 0, 270 degrees minus 0.71, and 360 degrees. We are to join the coordinates. And this is the cosine graph that completes half the full cycle. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe.